Hello, welcome back to Leah's Leaves. Blossoms on my beans, yay! Flowers are coming along. Peach sorbet blueberry is doing fine. I have 2 of those. My dwarf cherry Baja tomato is starting to form its first little blossoms. Little tray of dwarf cutesy cosmos coming along nicely. Luminosa zinnia, these are pink zinnias. They're developing their true leaves now. Several eggplants in grow bags. They got a little bit of, somebody was munching on them, but the plants themselves are fine. They'll rebound no problem. In the vertical bucket garden, nearly every tomato and pepper are flowering now. And of course, I've shown you before my handsome devil here, that beautiful cayenne pepper. There are 3 fruits growing on it already and more flowers forming. Can't wait to eat that one right there, buddy. But not till it's red. My raised beds are lined with a little row of peppers, all of them in 1 or 2 gallon nursery pots. And then over here, some grow bags, more peppers, root pouches. So those are fabric. The kohlrabi and Savoy cabbage in ground is doing great. I didn't have any of the pests I was expecting when I decided to hedge my bets and use a couple of buckets to grow a few extra of each. So today I want to talk to you about watering when you're using containers. If you're growing for the first time this season, and you find sometimes you walk outside after you haven't watered in a day or 2 or 3, and the water is just pulling up on the surface of the soil but not going through, or it's draining down the sides but it's not sinking into the soil in the main part of the bucket where your plant is actually growing. That's because the soil is experiencing something called hydrophobia, and simply put, the water molecules can't adhere to the soil molecules until the soil is sufficiently rehydrated. And I came out here today and did a deep watering. Today's in the 70s. Tomorrow's going to be a beautiful day here in western PA. And then we have, in the long range forecast, 7 straight days of 85 or higher with heat indexes into the 90s. And there are a couple days coming where the heat index will probably reach triple digits. So my buckets, those grow bags, those planter, the nursery pots, even over here the crate Thorburns terracotta is growing. You know, these kinds of containers are wonderful. You can grow a lot of things in them. I'm growing a tomato, and then I companion planted it with some onions and radish to keep some of the pests away. And so they're a great way to grow food, but they do dry out faster than in ground. And you can understand why. The ground, of course, is a natural reservoir for water. And plants are able in the ground to grow the deepest taproot necessary to find water under the soil surface. Whereas in a bucket or a grow bag or a plant pot, that's as low as the roots can go. It can't go any further. So what you need to do is stay on top of your watering in your containers to prevent the hydrophobia from developing in the first place. Containers will always need to be watered more frequently than in-ground or deep raised bed spaces. I'll even show you here, one second. I'm going to move the camera. We're going to walk over here to my raised beds, and you can see that this first bed that has my cucumbers in it, some calendula, some dill, some nasturtium, and some onions. all interplanted. The soil here is much shallower than in the 2 beds next to it. That was just because when I filled this bed, these are the things I was able to plant in shallower soil. But it also means that even this bed, it's not a bucket, it's not a nursery pot, it's not a grow bag, but it doesn't have a deep soil system. Under that soil is a whole layer of cardboard as a barrier between here and the natural soil beneath. So I have to keep this bed watered just as frequently as my containers. So a couple things to keep in mind. Number one, when you're watering a container, don't judge the moisture in the soil by what you see on the surface. Maybe you got rain, maybe a little passing shower, and you think, oh good, my plants got watered. You need to stick that finger all the way to the second digit, which is a little, like an inch or a little over, all the way down into the soil like that. And where your fingertip is, if that has some moisture to it, then your soil is moist enough to avoid hydrophobia and for the roots of that plant to be able to get to water. But if that's dry under there, you need to water. That's true even in an in-ground bed, but it's especially important in a container. The second thing is, if you experience hydrophobia in your soil and you're using something like this is just a 1 gallon, it's a 1.5 gallon little nursery pot that I have a pepper growing in. I could bring a tub of some sort out here, a little reservoir, put some water in it and just stick that pot in the tub, and it will slowly, over the course of between 20 minutes and an hour, soak water up. It'll wick it up from the bottom and rehydrate. That's not always possible though. Like in a big giant grow bag like this, I can't lift that mamma jamma, and I'm not dragging a hose and a kiddie pool and all kinds of things out here just to try to rehydrate it. So the next thing you do is get a stick or your finger, and you'll understand that it's the perimeter of any container you're using that will dry out first, because it's the one most exposed to the elements. So go in toward the plant in the middle where your plants are growing and just poke a couple holes in here and then water. And let that water absorb down into the center part where your plants are, and it will retain water and then wick out, and it will rehydrate your soil, your dry soil, from the inside outward, okay? And then the third thing you can do, which is what I did today, this morning, I did 1 pass with the hose, and I surface watered everything. And then I did a 2nd pass with the hose. And then I did a 3rd pass with the hose. And by that 3rd pass, enough of the water had wicked in to overcome the hydrophobia, and now the soil could retain the water molecules, absorb them, and they would spread. And now all of my containers are deeply watered and prepared for the coming heat wave that we're about to have. Anyway, I hope that's helpful to you. If you're a container gardener like me, I grow so many things in containers. I don't own the land where I live, so nearly everything I grow is above ground, except for this one little veggie patch right here, which is 10 feet wide, 14 feet long. That was here when I moved in. So I do have an in-ground patch there, but everything else is above the surface, either in a container or in a no-till above ground growing space, like those raised beds, or over here, the corn, pumpkin, and sunflowers that I'm growing over here on the south side of my house. So if you're like me and you have to rely heavily on containers, whether that's kiddie pools or clay pots, nursery pots, grow bags, or 3 or 5 gallon plastic buckets, or any other object you decide to turn into a container, stay on top of that watering, keep your soil hydrated. It will dry out faster than your in-ground beds. Your plants will thrive even in a container when it has the proper watering. I'm learning a lot, sharing it here, and I hope you come grow with me. Bye.